Hey, how's it going? Here's some editing tips for your creative project. So for the first one, show your best angles that you want to show in your first sequence of shots. Such as with your dialogue, you typically want to use your wide angle, or if you want to show some more dramatic shots, use like a close-up first and then pull out to the wide and so forth, and that'll grab the attention right away. Another thing is use your wide shots sparingly. For a scene, mostly use different angles. For dialogue scenes, what I've used in the past when I wasn't able to rent enough gear or had enough gear is we would do multiple takes with different angles just to switch up the shots and so forth to keep the audience attention going. Stanley Kubrick is well known for having one long shot, and a lot of people find it boring and so forth. So if you want to spruce it up a little bit, use multiple different angles, especially with dialogue scenes, because you want to get the reactions of the actresses, of what the other person is saying and so forth. And then also it'll also hide some maybe bad audio clips that you may have, or even a twitch or something that you don't want within the film from the actor or actress that is showing the clip. Such as when I was doing my film, there are a few scenes where the actress had either a lethargic tone or twitch, so I would cut away to the other actress who was more energetic or showing off the scene better, perhaps. Another thing is to pay attention to the speaker, such as the actor or the actress. Watch how they are moving, either with their hands or their eyes. Of course, make sure that they're not looking at the camera itself, but see how they're moving. Perhaps they're like pushed in towards the camera itself, or pushed in towards the subject matter. Is that more interesting, or is it the fact that they're more away from the person, or are they moving more frequently? Would you like that? And utilize those type of movements. When you're shooting, it's also good to have different reactions with the cast that you're working with, such as have them play around with different types of actions outside of the dialogue that they're speaking, so you have more room to edit once you're in that process. Cut out mistakes to cut into an action. This technique involves cutting from one shot to a second shot that's from a different angle and different take that omits the mistake. Cutting on action gives the audience the impression of a continuous time when they're watching an edit. If you really like that take and you don't have that many takes, cut on an action and maybe cut the audio so you can hide that mistake more often. Use B-roll shots in sets of 3, or use B shots. If a scene requires a cutaway insert, use 3 in a row. If each B-roll clip uses approximately 1.5 to 2 seconds long. An example of where B-roll shots are often used is when a character enters a room and looks around. In this case, 3-point of view inserts could be used to give the audience a good idea of the landscape the character has just encountered. Such as when they're entering a room, use multiple B-roll shots of like entering the door, grabbing a coffee and so forth. Or also use plenty of B-roll. The character isn't giving the action that you want, perhaps. Or the shot is going on for too long. Just cut away to a B-roll of what's maybe either what's being said or what's in the room. So while you're filming your whatever you're doing, make sure you get plenty of B-roll to cover your ass in the edit. Make sure you have a proper pacing while you're working. Maintain a pace while you're working on the film, such as with the dialogue, there's a certain tempo that it'll automatically create, either with the tone of voice or when you implement like sound effects or music cues. Go along with the beat of every tempo that hits, and make sure that also when you do the music as well, make sure it fits the tone that you're going for, such as happy is usually go faster, slower and dramatic is more like long and slow paced. So that will easily help with your edit as well. I usually lay down the audio track and the music track first, and then I see what needs to be changed, such as with the audio track, and then I'll see what needs to be added in with the music. Or while I'm filming, I'm keeping in mind with the music that I would like to add in as well. When I start the edit track itself, I usually throw in the audio, the music mix, and then while that's going in, I bring in the video and then cut towards every spike that may happen, such as like a violin beat or drum beat, etc. And if you want to mix it up, you don't always have to cut every single beat, like transition it a little bit more and pace it out. It's just according to your eye. Just watch the clip and it'll come naturally to you. Another one is give edits some breathe room. After spending a lot of time working on the same project, make sure you step away for a day or two or even a week. And then maybe your mind and your eyes will become a fresh start of what you want to create. Along with editing, of course, get a fast computer. If possible, you can either buy one or you can rent one, of course. There are plenty of companies out there who sell or let you lease out a fast computer that need be, whether it be PC or Mac. PCs are usually easier to fix up with SSD and RAM that you may need. Usually 8 gigs of RAM is the least amount for high quality footage. It'll speed up your export, your rendering, all that fun stuff. So you have an ample amount of time to edit and then get that stuff out into the world to be seen. I had an 8 gig computer and then everything else was low quality in my computer. So I had to upgrade for my 6K footage for the film, which the film I just finished is it's about an hour and 40 minutes. So when I amped up, everything ran smoothly. The only problem I ran across was the SSD, which it usually goes from $800 and up. And the USB Thunderbolt that I used, it crashed my computer quite often. So I would highly suggest, if you plan on filming multiple movies or short films with a high quality footage, invest in the proper SSD that you need and the RAM as well. An editor has a certain eye when they're looking at the footage. They know when to cut. They have a sixth sense per se of when to cut the film. It's like a muscle. Over time you'll get used to the editing of what you're doing and you'll get more comfortable of what you're editing and so forth, and you'll feel less self-conscious of what you're creating. Look at all the YouTube or any courses that you can over editing, and they'll teach you like hotkeys and so forth. If you're not the director and you're just the editor, make a cut for the director and then make a cut for yourself as well, just to play around with the footage, and maybe you can also see what comes out of the footage itself. Maybe the story comes out better than the director had hoped for, or maybe you can mix match the two. It'll open the ideas and the concepts with the story itself. Utilize keyboard shortcuts and hotkeys. There are plenty of links and so forth where you can get a short list of all the hotkeys, such as Command S, Command J, Option Command B for paste and so forth, for attributes for Adobe Premiere, After Effects, Photoshop. It'll certainly pick up the ample amount of speed that you're editing. Some basic editing concepts you can look into. Jump cuts, they're usually frowned upon. Cutting out portions to skip an entire sequence, or like a jarring effect. It's used mostly in horror films and so forth, or amateur filmmaking. I would say stay clear of that. Another thing that would be more beneficial is the J cut and L cut. The J cut is where audio precedes the video. Video leads into the next clip with an audio transition. L cut is different. It's where you have 2 video clips and right under and then the 2 audio clips under it. So it hides the audio that may need to be fixed. If it's a dialogue scene, you can cut away and use a B-roll on top of the messed up shot that you may need to transition. So utilize the L cut and it'll make the dialogue scenes or what have you run way smoother if you do that. It will also look way more professional as well. If you're doing a dialogue scene, you can have one character talking, and then the next sentence is starting to go with the other person. You don't automatically want to cut directly to that person. You want to follow into the next shot. It will look a lot more professional. If you look at modern day, or any film for that matter, they usually do the L cut and it just flows nicely. For your audio clips as well, make sure you use a soft transition and don't cut on a certain word perhaps. So while somebody is talking, don't cut right after they talk, because they usually have you want to cut those out, but you want a nice pace as well. So when you're cutting to audio clips, make sure you have a little transition to soften the audio. If there's some audio frequency that needs to transition, such as room noise and so forth, that little transition will soften the whole edit and it'll just flow nicely. So while you're watching it, you won't hear a rough cut of maybe a fan going off. Cutting on action. Usually when a subject matter is moving, cut on one of their steps, such as when somebody is walking down the stairs, cut on that right foot that they're walking down. Maybe you see that foot going, then the next shot you see their body movement, you'd see their same body movement of walking on that step. Cut on that action and it'll flow more significantly. Make sure everything is color corrected properly and cohesive as well, such as blue tones and warm tones. Keep that in mind. If one shot is very blue and then the next shot is warm, even though it's in the same room, it'll be very jarring and it just doesn't make sense, of course. There are plenty of examples of how to go in depth of color correction. There's actually big jobs where they just do color corrections, such as marble film, to make sure their suit looks properly colored the whole way through. So color correction is a big insight that is often overlooked. For audio, make sure it's all clean. Have your headphones in, it helps significantly. When you listen for audio, as you can maybe hear, I'll use in this example, for my camera itself, I'm in my place right now and you can maybe able to hear the cars going past and so forth, but I also have a microphone right here that gets the separate audio. While you're filming, make sure you have a separate audio gear and then use the clapboard to sync the audio. For mine right here, I'm using the Zoom H4n Pro. It's not that bad at pricing. I'll put it right here and it's well worth the money, and it also helps clean up your audio as well. So while you're pointing it at the subject matter, you can get that clean audio, throw on some filters and change the levels and so forth and clean it up a little. And if it's really bad, you can transition in some sound effects or music as well and smooth in that audio. Audio is very important in filmmaking. There's a dilemma whether audio is good or the visuals need to be more important. I would have to agree with audio and so forth. If you just see a visual and you just hear static the whole time, you wouldn't really want to watch it. So you want to hear what the subject matter is saying, unless of course you want to do subtitles the whole thing, but you probably don't want to do that. Keep audio in mind, that's all I have to say about that. Select good music, whether it's a drama or a comedy, make sure it fits the tone of the film. With adding text and graphics, you don't have to be a graphic designer per se. Just make sure that it's cohesive and it's also relevant to what you're doing. So if you're doing graphics and so forth in your film, make sure you spruce it up and it's all one thing. And then as well with coloring, if you decide to color your graphics as well, make sure it's the same tone as your film as well. Adjust your frame is another editing technique. If you shot too much headroom for the person, or if they're way on the outside and you want to adjust it, make sure you shoot high quality enough, or make sure you shoot far enough. You want to zoom in, perhaps, such as my 6K, I shot primarily to make sure it'll be shot on film theaters, And if I wanted to, I could like push in on a scene, or if I screwed up by chance, if I wasn't looking at the monitor, or if I had a camera operator who was off a little and it wasn't exactly what I wanted, I could crop in a little bit. You can also crop in a smaller frame such as 1080 or whatnot, but the quality won't be as crisp. With 6K you can zoom in and it'll be the exact same quality, which is excellent for nowadays. If you're having issues and the shot doesn't look quite as good, you can simply just adjust your frame within the settings of your edit. Some things to avoid real quick. Avoid like poor audio or inconsistent audio, such as one example is I was shooting with a campfire and I had a wide shot of everybody, and then I had a close-up of the campfire itself, which I had the camera right on the campfire. So I heard the pops and so forth from the fire, and then when I cut away to the exterior, and it was really abrupt. Even though the viewer would see that, yes, we are far away, so we shouldn't hear the fire crackle right in our ears. But just make sure that you transition it well with, again, those small transitions that you can do in the edit. Visuals. Make sure there's no little split-second frame where you miss the transition, the cut. There is a little feature in Adobe Premiere with a magnet, so you can drag your clip and it'll automatically snap to the next clip. But if you don't click that on, just watch the whole thing through and make sure there's not like a split second of black. Otherwise, the viewer will notice something is off if they're not an editor, and if they are an editor, they'll be like, oh, this person may be an amateur because they missed that little clip and they didn't watch their footage. So just be aware of that. And then also with audio, make sure you go through the audio and you cut out all the actions and then the exterior from maybe your crew saying rolling and so forth, or whether you or the director is saying action. And while you're filming, actually, to help your editing process, make sure you get a couple minutes of nobody talking and just get the room tone of the space that you're shooting in, and also the room tone of wherever you're shooting, such as outside. Have everybody be quiet and just film for 2 minutes of just the audio for you. For the editor as well. Whoever's editing, they'll be greatly thankful that you have that. Another example is when I've been filming outside, some outside noise, which was not, I had other people not on the film set talking amongst themselves, and I could hear it picked up from the audio. So with the extra audio that we captured without anybody talking, I just threw that in under and hid those outside noises. Well, thank you. That's some editing tips. Hopefully that helps. Please leave comments down below of what may help you with your editing. And thank you and have a great day. Bye.